So several months ago, I think it was the sea kayaking safety video, a number of people in the comments talked about how one of the things that concerned them was entrapment. And that was something that surprised me and reminded me that the way that I feel in a kayak is not the way everyone feels in a kayak, which is super important to keep track of. And so today I want to talk about entrapment, the realities of entrapment, getting over that fear of entrapment, and essentially becoming comfortable doing a wet exit. Let's go. Welcome back, everyone. It is good to see you all. So entrapment, something that I did not think was a big concern for folks, is apparently a big concern for folks. So let's talk about it, and we're going to do some numbers based on my experience, and we're going to talk about how to get over that fear of entrapment, and we'll talk about essentially process for doing a wet exit. I'm going to, on the wet exit front, I would love to be demoing that in a boat. However, my local lake, I'm in Pennsylvania at the moment, my local lake, the water is not near clear enough, as you can see in this, not near clear enough for it to be of any use in terms of me doing a wet exit here and people being able to see it. So I'll show you the way we talk about wet exits with students. First, I want to talk about some numbers. These are numbers specific to me, and they're averages, but it'll give you an idea of some facts. I taught kayaking for REI Outdoor School for 8 years, from 2014 to 2020, end of 2021. And we taught kayaking in Central North Carolina from mid-May to mid-September. There was some variation based on weather. So we'll call that 4 months, right? Because it's a middle of a month to a middle of a month, and there was some variation. Let's call it 4 months. 4 months gets us 4 weekends. We didn't only teach, we mainly taught kayaking courses, paddle sport courses on the weekends. We would occasionally do tours midweek, but instruction-based courses were run on weekends. 4 weekends a month gives us 16 weekends in the course of a season where we're teaching paddle sports. I would teach between 1 and 4 classes on a weekend, so 1 or 2 on Saturday, 1 or 2 on Sunday. Let's call it 2.5 classes per weekend. And there would be 2 to 6 people per class. So it's a minimum to get boats on the water, a minimum of 2 students, a maximum for 1 instructor to have 6 students. There were a handful of times I taught people more than that, sort of breaking the rules just to sort of make it work. And there were a number of times that I taught really big classes with a second instructor. We're just going to ignore those for the time being. 2 to 6 people, we'll call it 4 people. This is Brett from the future. There's a reason I don't teach math. You wouldn't believe how long it took me to say this correctly. The math I've got, but just saying it correctly. 8 years of teaching, 4 months per year. So each season is 4 months, is 32 months. Each month has 4 weekends, that's 128 weekends. Each weekend has 2.5 classes on average, that's 320 classes, times 4 students, also an average, is 1,280 students. Okay, back to me. That's 1,280 students that I taught kayaking. Obviously, an average. I suspect it's actually more than that, but still, let's call it 1,280 students teaching kayaking-related classes for REI. In those years and those students, I saw 3 students inadvertently roll a kayak. This is not counting courses that we taught where wet exits were a part of the curriculum, which there were. We would only do that 2 or 3 times a season, but we're just going to discount those. So 3 times that students inadvertently flipped a boat and wet exited. And I'll tell you right now, all of them were doing something stupid, reaching for something. Ooh, my hat blew off. Ooh, I dropped something in the water. I'll reach for it. That's how you flip a boat, is reaching for something which gets you off balance. In all three cases, before I could even get my boat turned to approach the students, they were out of the boat and usually standing next to their boat. I think only once were they swimming next to their boat. So all three times those students wet exited without prior training, your PFD pretty much pulls you out of the boat. None of them were wearing spray skirts, so relatively straightforward. No signs of entrapment. I will also say 6 years with Knowles. I only 1 year did 2 courses in a year, but still it's 16 or so, 13 to 16 students per course. Every student on a Knowles course has to demonstrate a wet exit as well as self-rescues because of the environment. And Knowles, one of the things that Knowles does is they do store a little bit of gear, like the gear that you need for the day will be in the cockpit with you. So a dry bag or a day bag with a waterproof liner, and then maybe a water bag or something like that. So think like a 10-liter dry bag in the cockpit with you. And then instructors, like in my cockpit, I would have a day bag with the stuff that I would need throughout the day, a water bottle, a VHF radio, and a first aid kit. So 4 things in the cockpit with me. I never saw a student get entrapped in a boat. Okay. So that's data based on my experience, right? Entrapments generally don't happen in my experience. It is something that people worry about, but it's not something that, in my opinion, needs to be high on the list. So that I think is important, just to sort of understand my point of view. But in reality, it doesn't matter, right? If you're concerned about entrapment, that's what matters. That's a real concern. And so we need to deal with that concern and work to get you as a student, as a new paddler, over that fear of entrapment, right? So I'm just telling you that stuff to say, hey, it doesn't really happen, but that doesn't diminish the way that you feel about the fear of entrapment. Okay, next let's talk about how to get over that fear. If you have a fear of entrapment, or honestly, even if you don't, if you're a new paddler, you should develop a good wet exit skill. I think it's just a good thing to have. You should be comfortable flipping your boat over and exiting your boat. You should be comfortable doing it with a skirt on. You should be comfortable doing it without a skirt on, either way. You should work with a coach that will stand in the water next to your boat, so that when you roll the boat over, you've got someone standing there. It's super reassuring to have a human being standing there in case, like if you're concerned about entrapment or wet exiting in general, you should totally do that in an environment that is more controlled. And the best way to have that be a controlled environment is with an instructor standing next to you. You could do this in any water source, but really the ultimate way to do this with an instructor standing next to you is in a swimming pool. So I know a number of groups that teach this skill in swimming pools. You could do it at like the National Whitewater Center. You could do it, I did it at a university when I was first starting paddling. So it is a good thing to do in terms of practice. The other thing that I will say is to set yourself up for success. And the way that you do that is prepare yourself psychologically for, hey, tonight or today, I'm going to flip my boat over intentionally and I'm going to calmly wet exit my boat. In addition to that, I think it's a great idea to wear nose plugs. I have nose plugs in my PFD so that when I'm practicing rolling, I'm not getting a head full of water. It's just good practice. I can still roll my boat without them, but usually you come up with a head full of water. If you are really concerned, if you feel like you'll be disoriented, wear swim goggles or a snorkeling mask or something like that. So your eyes are covered, your nose is covered. It should be super, super, super calm. That's the environment we're going for. So those are some things to think about if this is a concern for you, or as I said, even if it's not, this is just a good skill to have. Every paddler should be comfortable doing this. So get comfortable, work with a coach, wear nose plugs, wear goggles. If you can, do it in a pool. If you can't, then do it in calm, protected waters. Okay, now let's talk about process. So in its simplest form, if I want to wet exit this kayak, I'm going to be sitting in it in the beginning without a spray skirt. I've got a paddle, I've got a PFD on, and I want you to, even before you get on the water, I want you to do exactly what I'm doing, which is sit on the ground, on the grass, ready to go, and sit in the boat and get a feel for how everything here feels, right? My feet are on the foot pegs, my thighs are in the thigh braces, my butt is in the seat. I'm connected to the boat's gonna do what I want it to do. When it's time for me to roll this boat over, what I do, and I was taught to roll by whitewater kayakers, so I may do things differently than other people do. Remember, rethink everything, is when I'm ready to roll, I get the paddle in the setup position and I literally dive my head to the water off to one side or the other side. It's always a good idea to be comfortable doing this in both directions. Then, once I'm upside down, right, paddle is here, I'm leaning forward. Again, because I was taught by whitewater paddlers, they spend a lot of time worrying about protecting their head. They would have a helmet on. I generally don't unless I'm in surf. I'm protecting my head by keeping it from hitting whatever is below me if I were upside down, right? So I'm gonna lean forward, I'm gonna find the cockpit coaming, and all I have to do without a skirt is push. The buoyancy of my PFD will pull me out of the boat. I'll come up on the side. I should be holding on to a paddle. Then it's a good idea to hold on to the boat. Then you can start flipping the boat and dealing with re-entry, which is a whole other topic of conversation, right? So I'm gonna get ready to roll. Set up position, forward, lean this way, the whole boat will go over. And then wait. The water will be boiling around you, lots of bubbles, lots of noise, just wait, right? And then you can, once it calms down, reach around, find the cockpit coaming, push off of the boat, you'll be out of the water before you know it. Okay, now with a PFD on, pretty much the same thing. Now I'm wearing a spray skirt. This is really what gets people scared because they think that the skirt is gonna get stuck on the boat and they're not gonna be able to get out. Now, I will say this spray skirt is a whitewater skirt and it is very hard to get it off of the boat. A normal touring skirt, you should be able to just put a knee into. Oh, I can do it. A knee and it'll pop. I really didn't think it was gonna pop. Even if you can't find the coaming or something like that, chances are, if you just push, see, that won't work with this skirt. Eventually it will. You can get out of the boat. But this spray skirt, all spray skirts, have a grab loop on the front. And so you need to make sure that this is standing out. It is possible with some skirts to put this on. So it is possible to put this on so that the grab handle is inside the skirt. So as you go to grab it, you may not be able to get it. And that's a situation where hands on the side of the boat or the coaming and a knee up and the whole skirt will come up. Don't be panic-stricken now just because you're wearing a skirt. Even if you make a mistake, you can get out. The process is gonna be the same as we were doing before. So if I'm holding my paddle, I'm gonna set up like this. I'm leaning forward. I'll roll the boat by diving to one side or the other. The boat will flip. I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna take a metaphorical deep breath. I'm gonna relax. I'm gonna let the bubbles stop swirling. I'm gonna calm myself down. I'm gonna remember what it is I have to do, which is I have to find the cockpit coaming. This time, I'm gonna slide my hands forward until I get that grab handle, and then I'm just gonna pull it, and then I'm gonna pop out. The cockpit coaming is your guide. It will lead you to the grab handle that you need to pull. If you get there and there's no grab handle, kick out with a knee. You can totally do this. A great tool for getting better at this is visualization. Visualization is something that I learned about rock climbing a million years ago, is to look at the route that you're about to climb and think through the steps that you're going to take and then visualize them in your head. You can do the exact same thing here. On a nice quiet day, even just sitting in the grass, visualize the steps that you're going to take once the boat is upside down. Build that muscle memory. I talk a lot about muscle memory, and that's what we're doing here. Build that muscle memory. Even in your head, before it becomes muscle, it can become memory. So visualization works beautifully in terms of calming you down, keeping your brain on track when you're doing something that you're stressed about. And this is something that people stress about. Okay, so there are my steps. Whether you can find a coach or not, I think it's a great idea to practice this on land, use visualization to get you through the humps, and then practice in the water in a controlled environment, hopefully with a coach. If not, work with a friend. I wouldn't do this alone, particularly in the beginning. I would definitely work with someone if you can't find a coach. Sometimes it's hard to find a coach, and I get that. So find a friend that will work on this with you. So those are the steps. I hope this was helpful to get you over that entrapment fear. Really, the key is just to get comfortable with the boat, moving around the boat, exiting the boat, and then eventually getting to the point where you can, with help, get back in the boat, and then on your own get back in the boat. Those are all great skills to have that will give you a ton more confidence in the boat and in the water. If this was helpful, do me a favor, hit like, hit subscribe. My books are available on Amazon in hard copy, on Ko-fi in electronic form, as well as the Guides Way, gear lists, risk management stuff. It's all there on Ko-fi. I hope this was helpful. This is a big topic. Take it slow. You got this. All right, I'll see you on the water. Whoa.
Nice. Good bars, brother. Whoa. Goodbye.